Welcome back to episode 2 of the Goalie Growth Project. I am so excited. Today I'm going to be chatting with Coach Quistgard, Fred Quistgard. He was my goalie coach when I played at Brewster Academy in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, boarding school. He was so committed that he drove from Maine to New Hampshire to work with me, and he did the same thing in college. So I worked with him for many years, and we've stayed in touch, and he agreed to come on and chat with me. He used to deal with 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old me, and that was no feat. But he is just such a great resource. He's done so much for the game. He's been around for a very long time. I'm so excited that he's taken some of the time to share his knowledge with us today. Without further ado, I present to you Coach Quistgard. I just want to bring more awareness to it. And I know some people will be like, Ture, it's not that deep. It is that deep. It is that deep to me. And I do care about it a lot. And I'm going to talk about it. So that's why I started a podcast. Well, it's been a while. I literally cannot thank you enough for agreeing to do this with me. I know you're so busy, so I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. What are you up to right now? Because I know that you're still coaching. I see pictures of you. I feel like I either see you with drums or I see you on the ice.
Conga drums.
Okay,
But,
conga drum.
But I'm in my 47th year coaching. This is my 5th year as goalie coach for the Maine Mariners, which is the Boston Bruins AA affiliate. Still doing youth hockey, goalie skills as well. I think over in Dover, New Hampshire, and Evolution Hockey in Gorham, Maine.
So you're still very much in the world of hockey. Yep. Why have you, you've basically dedicated your life to the sport, and what got you to a place where you wanted to do that?
Pure luck in some ways, because, going back to the beginning, I was a nerdy, overweight teenager that was not athletic whatsoever, and just happened to turn on the TV and the hockey game was on, and something about the goalie was like a flash of lightning that I wanted to do it. And then I found a team I could play on when I was about 15, taught myself how to play in study hall at high school. My high school didn't have a team, so I just read Jacques Planck's book on goaltending, Tony Esposito's, other people, and then that started the passion for it. Then I went to a community college in New Jersey first, got cut by the team there, got a job in a rink, slept on the stretcher in the first aid room every night, had people shoot at me till 2 o'clock in the morning after the rentals were done. Made the team the next year, transferred to what was then New Hampshire College, now Southern New Hampshire University. Played 3 years there. My junior summer, my head coach gave me a brochure for Louis Chabot's All East goalie camp. Said, oh, you should work for this guy. So I called Louis up and said, hi, I'm Freddie. I'm the goalie over at New Hampshire College. I'd like to work for you. He said, I don't need you. And he hung up on me. So I called him every night for 2 weeks. And I said, I'd really like to work for you. He's like, I really don't care. And then after 2 weeks, he said, tell you what, you live in Manchester. I'll give you my first camp's in Manchester. I'll give you $20 for the week. If you're for real, I'll take you around New England the rest of the summer. If you don't do a good job for me, I never want to see you again. I said, okay. I'll do that. And that's what got me into it. He was my first mentor, and then he got me my first coaching job at St. Paul's prep school. And then it's just snowballed over the years. That's how the start was.
My dad, when I was chatting with him, he told me, because I was like, how did he, Coach Quistgard, come into our lives? Like, how did this happen? And he said that he would be reading Hockey Night in Boston.
Yeah, it was Hockey USA newspaper in Boston.
Hockey USA.
I wrote for that for about 20 years. And I know a lot of goalies have come up to me, that like college goalies, and people said that you kept me sane because nobody gave me any coaching when I was in school. Right. So I just read your articles. Even when I was in the press box at a Mariners game last year, Mitch Corin, who's a legendary NHL goalie coach, and he's the director of goaltending for the New York Islanders. I knew of him, but never met him, and just introduced myself. He goes, oh, yeah, I know you because you're all those great articles and pre-internet. They did touch a lot of people.
That is true that it's pre-internet. Do you have like a database of those things somewhere? Are they accessible online now?
No, a few of them are on the ProMask website. I think Matt Garland still has some on his site. I used to have about 70 there, and I think there's still a handful of them. But I basically have just photocopies. I kept them all, and I keep meaning to take the time to maybe make a book out of them or something.
Is that how I got into ProMask then? Because that's what my mask is.
Yeah, probably from my connection with Matt Garland.
Yeah. That is just so cool. And so I wasn't planning on getting into this early. The position has evolved so much,
Mhm.
but I'm wondering if you think back, are you still drawing on things from those initial articles way back when, even though there's all these differences in the position today?
I mean, when I got inducted in the Hampshire Hockey Hall of Fame last year, a bunch of old goalie coaches were there, and it was like, "So what's it like teaching the modern game?" I said, "It's still time and space. It's just different techniques." But, as your dad mentioned in his podcast, it's like your tool bag. I mean, I know. I even saw Bill Ranford podcast, the director of goaltending for the LA Kings, who used to play for the Bruins and the Oilers, and he uses the same analogy, like pulling out the right tool at the right time from your tool bag. So it's that hasn't changed, just I think the different weapons in the arsenal have changed,
Yeah.
but I still think you have to make the right decision at the right time, which is how you read the game. There are tons of goalie coaches out there compared to back in the day, but in my opinion, a lot of them are like robots now. Like they know how to slide really pretty, they can do things, but they don't understand the purpose behind it. Like, why would you use this in this situation versus that situation? If you can't process that, you just look really pretty being scored on.
Something that I cannot wrap my head around, the play on the post
Mhm.
these days. I guess I'd be interested to hear, are you teaching still like old school, the way you cover your post? What are you teaching these
It's
days?
situational. That
Right.
it's just for a lot of goalies, even the NHL, I think they're learning to hold their feet a little bit longer now because the shooters know you're going to be on your knees. But I think it's when you use it and how long you stay in it. So
Mhm.
I know the fancy term now is post integration. To me, it's just, how you handle
Right.
the post, but
Right.
they have fancy terms for it. But whether you do the RVH, the VH, or stand up against your post, there's a reason for all of them. So if someone's doing a wraparound, whether you use an ankle block with your pad, do you use a toe block? I mean, there's different ways you can put your pad against the post. Some of
Mhm.
them open up different holes and things. So, but if someone's just wrapping it, and however you get a tight seal will work. But if somebody gets separation and they have time and space, if you're just laying there and not doing something slightly different to take more space away, then they can put it by your ear. They can put it in that hole by your knee. So it's just having my goalies, like when we're talking to the Mariners, it's like making sure they understand when to segue out of one thing or when it's better to hold your feet. The puck's 75 feet away. Why are you on your knees? I mean, this
Yeah.
wasted energy. You can't get to the slot, you know, so, so it's just, I think it's all situational. And that's how I try to teach it. It's like you have to make the right read at the right time using the right technique and
Right.
bring out the right tool from your tool bag. So
Yeah.
I'm still using traditional stuff from back in the day, but I think I've always stayed ahead of the curve. That's why I'm still coaching 47 years later because, I evolve with the times, but I also don't throw the baby out with the bathwater either. That if there's things that
Mhm.
worked in the past, like the game's so fast now, if you have an active stick, you can prevent having to make a tough save in the slot or things
Yes.
like that. So it's just a lot of times it's asking questions, just why did you do that? What did
Right.
you see? And have them
Right.
explain it. And then by the act of explaining, they kind of learn, something themselves and about themselves.
And I think that that's something that's so important in having a person there to have those conversations with. Oftentimes, if somebody's self taught and they're only learning, I should do this in this situation, and then I should do this in this situation. But like you said, an active stick, what are you doing in between this situation and this
Mhm.
situation to mend them together so that you don't have holes in the process of getting
Right.
from here to here?
Right. And, it's just a lot of it's just, as you mentioned in your last podcast, just the relationship building and things. I know at the end of my first year with the Mariners, with our Bruins contract goalie took me out to lunch and I was like, Boothie, did I do a good job for you? Was I a good goalie coach for you? And he's like, we're pros. We don't need a goalie coach. We need a psychologist and you're a really good psychologist.
Right.
So
Yeah.
basically you're trying to help them keep their mind free, give them feedback on what they're doing, but you're not really trying to reinvent the wheel. And basically, a pro goalie is not that much different than a Mike goalie, except they're bigger, stronger, and faster. The concepts are similar, but the game is faster. And
Right.
they just have to, if they can simplify the game between the years and they can relax and play, then, they're more successful. And so I'm not there to do like a in-depth teaching as if somebody would do in the summertime or something. It's more or less correcting habits, keeping the good habits going, and positive feedback,
Yeah.
doing.
For sure, that makes a ton of sense. So
Mhm.
what's the youngest age kid that you're working with these
Probably
days?
7 or 8.
Yeah. Okay. So same. Are you mostly working with those kids in the capacity of camps and clinics, or
Right.
are you going
The
into practices?
Yeah, I'm doing the skills work and practices for a couple of different youth hockey programs, so they all ages. Sometimes I have a whole, like, hour and change to do something, but most of the time now it's just a practice. I get 10 or 15 minutes at the beginning, and then I float and I chat in between shots and let them know what I see and stuff, and I try to keep doing simple concepts over and over again with different ways of reaching them, I guess.
Just to kind of bring it back to the whole purpose of why I'm doing this, we're having so many young goalies still in 2025 that are not having somebody that's able to help them in practice.
Uh-huh.
I still feel like there's a large number of kids that are just being kind of forgotten about, and I'm wondering if that's maybe just me having blinders on and only seeing what I think I see, or are you seeing things like that as well?
It's a mix. I mean, because like some of these hockeys are very progressive. I used to work with Casco Bay, and they've got goalie coaches for every team now. That was there at least once a week, working with them, and the coaches have been taught to, like, explain purposes of the drills, including the goalie. So if you're talking one on ones, what's the forward doing, what's the D doing, and what's the goalie doing? So trying to get everybody covered. So there's some
Yeah.
of that, but then there's still some programs that don't get anything.
Right. Yeah. And I think that something that I've noticed too is I know that we're always trying to develop the players that are like the best and everything, but house league registration is just as expensive
Right,
as,
right.
some of the top tiers, especially depending on where you are in the world. And so I think that it's such a shame that we're in situations where we still have goalies just kind of waiting to be shot at. And
Yeah,
I'm trying to create a resource where coaches, parents, goalies can come and say, "Oh, these are things that you could do while you're waiting for them to come shoot on you. This is what
right.
crease work should look like. This is, and I feel like there's a need for that at least where I am. So I'm in Ontario, Canada,
Yeah,
and a couple of my teammates have seen that I'm working with more and more teams including house league, and they're like, why are there still so many goalies that aren't getting this in other areas? And so I think that it can be such a lonely position. There's such a need for it, and it's just going to make the game of hockey better altogether because, a good goalie can steal a game and it can change the
sure.
trajectory of somebody's season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's definitely better than it was
Yeah.
years ago, but it could always be better. I mean, and obviously with a lot of programs, if it's mostly volunteer people, then
Mhm.
yeah, you don't always get everything that the best instruction per se. You get well-meaning people, but sometimes in their eyes, it may be just shooting some pucks at the goalie, but not really explaining why. But I've told coaches in the past that if you don't know goaltending, you can just skate over to the goalie and ask them, "Why did you do what you just did on that play?"
Yeah, just have a
And then they
conversation
explain
with
it.
them.
Because if they explain it, at least they're verbalizing why they're doing what they're doing, and you don't have to know the answer. You can just have them just give some feedback of their own.
Yeah,
This just because you're wearing a forward doesn't mean you can't teach power play. You could have been a defenseman or a goalie and you're teaching power play. So why can't you, you
right.
also do the goalie stuff too, at least the
Yeah.
basics.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of switch gears to when you started working with me, because sometimes I'll tell people that, I went to boarding school
Mhm.
and I'm from Maine and I went to school in New Hampshire. I had a goalie coach that would come and like drive from Maine to New Hampshire and then did the same thing in college. What do you remember of that time? Like, I obviously wasn't part of those conversations where my dad would help advocate for me in those ways. What do you remember of that
Well,
time?
Well, I just remember, yeah, I've always been pretty flexible with any program I'm involved with because usually it's me coming to somebody's practice, which could be intrusive if you have the wrong kind of personality. Usually I would just ask the coach, like, can you give me a few minutes? How can I best integrate into your practice? And so I'm not a distraction, but I can still get stuff done. And most of them are pretty welcoming, give me 15 minutes or so at the beginning, and then I just kind of float in and out of their regular practice. I'm not having them change anything. And I
Right.
remember that was pretty much the way both in prep school and at New England College for you. It's just for me just offering feedback and some habits. I remember one New England practice, I remember you're getting beat up high, I think, a lot. And then I just had you hold your hands up a little bit taller. And the next practice, they were shooting off the glass a lot. So they were missing and they were getting frustrated. And I thought, well, isn't that nice? Because
Yeah.
if they're frustrated, that's a good thing for you.
Yeah. And that brings up such a good point because sometimes I feel like people, at least in my mind, I feel like people are so concentrated on having their hands be like pretty or a certain way. And I'm just like, just get them up. It doesn't have to be anything pretty. Just get them up. And those are things that I learned from you.
I know. Yeah, because it's pretty much everyone's gonna have their own individual idiosyncrasies. But to me, if the pocket's facing the puck and you keep your hands ahead of the body so that you can make early contact and it's not behind you when you're trying to catch it or deflect it, then that's pretty much the most important thing. You may
Right.
have a slight variation to what you're doing, but
Hmm.
it's not drastically different.
When I look back on my time working with you, especially when I got into college, I think that fit the mold of somebody that really needed someone there for like the mental part of the game. And I remember I had this very weird habit at Brewster where I would juggle against the wall. And in my mind, I needed to juggle 60 times in a row. And if I didn't, however many times I messed up in my mind, that was how many goals I was going to let up that game.
Okay.
And I remember explaining that to you at one point, and I remember you being like something like we're not doing that. Like you are putting a negative thought in your mind, and that is like you're already setting yourself up for failure. How young do you think is too young to start working on like the mental aspects of the game like that? Because
Yeah.
those are things I used to walk around Brewster with a puck on game day. And in my mind, if the puck ever went behind me, I was going to let up a goal. Those aren't healthy. Those aren't healthy things to be thinking.
Yeah, I mean, even little kids have their stressors about it and stuff, and and I just try to make sure you keep it in perspective because I was having this discussion with one of my Mariners goalies the other day, and because there's an AHL goalie that is like, how do you handle like giving up a bad goal? He goes, I just think that in the overall scheme of things in the world, it doesn't matter, and everybody's gonna die. It's like that's what he tells himself. But then my Mariners goalie, I told him that he started laughing. At the end of the day, like we were saying, no goalie has ever gone through their career without getting scored on. You have a 100% save percentage every year. You're going to give up goals. How do you deal with it? And you just kind of make sure they earn it. And if they earned it, sometimes we just call it the tip your hat play. It's like they made a perfect shot. You know,
Yeah.
that's what are you gonna do about it?
Something that I've been chatting with my goalies about recently, and I don't have it on this glove, but I had it on the glove prior, is I use like puffy paint
Hmm.
and just on the front of it where I could see, I wrote make the next save.
Yeah,
And my thought behind that is it doesn't matter if I just made an incredible save. It doesn't matter if I just let up the weakest goal.
right.
All that matters is what I'm going to do next.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get to a place where each goalie would have somebody to have conversations with about things that happened in the game, and we can reflect on that later, but all that matters right now is making the next save.
In his stall, he just had note cards saying pure patience because he felt like he got too antsy sometimes. So he always had it where he could see it, brush his teeth in the morning. His little card said pure patience, just so if he got scored on or something, just pure patience, it'll be okay, and that was his buzzword to get him back on track. So that's why I told, young goalies, sometimes you see the NHL goalies get scored on, they skate off, they get a drink of water or something, like they're letting the crowd do their thing and they're just staring at the water coming out of the water bottle and just
Yeah.
relaxing.
So I actually think that that's good for younger goalies to hear too. Even the pros still struggle with this stuff. Like this isn't something that anybody just grows out of.
No.
You can accumulate skills to help you get better and cope better with it, but that part of the game doesn't go away even when you're
Yeah.
at the highest level.
Well, I remember the Jacques Plante book I had, it's like his famous quote was about getting scored on. Was that, how would you like it if you're doing a little math work at your desk and all of a sudden you make a mistake and you start to erase it and 14,000 people start screaming at you over that little math error. It's like, that's what it's like getting scored on, at the
Right.
NHL level.
Right.
But it's like, how do you handle that? And again, it's perspective and hopefully you have somebody you can talk to, but if not, somebody hopefully it can tell you the tools to not take it personally, to not take it too seriously in the moment. Like it may be something you want to correct later, but middle of the game's not the time to do it. Just next shot, and
Yeah.
then then review it later, when you're done.
Absolutely. For sure. I was just earlier today looking at some videos of kind of goalies doing like eye movement
Hmm.
work.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's not necessarily something that I really ever did when I was still playing. Is that something that's more common today than it was back then, or
Well, it
what's kind of the
probably there's that. There's the I know that like I saw a video of Joey Daccord, the Seattle Kraken goalie. Like, Brian Decord's son used to be the Bruins goalie coach. He's run stop at goaltending, and I remember Brian had me work with Joey when he was, like, 10 years old just to give him a different voice and stuff, but there's a video of him with just the sense around stuff and
yeah.
just, like, making saves and stuff with that, so some people use that for, training, but, like, one of my goalies does does the bouncing off the wall with balls, and some of the other ones do the soccer, trash ball, whatever they call it before games and things, but they all have their routines of what they like to do. It's just finding a routine that puts your mind at ease and you don't overthink it. Like, how many, balls you drop or whatever. But just whatever the routine is that kind of puts you in that place.
Mhm.
So whether it's the same food, the same time you come to the rink, same order you put
Mhm.
your pads on,
Yeah.
anything that calms you down and gives you sense of structure and order, is
For
what you
sure.
need.
Some people have hesitancy with like a female goalie coach and having the ability to work with a male goalie. My argument to that is like the game is the game and the puck is the puck and the position is the position. Like angles are still angles, depending, doesn't matter, who's in the net. They're still kind of using the same strategies.
It's a lot more welcoming now than it used to be because we've had Mariners. I mean, for a couple of years, we had a female skills coach that the Bruins had as part of their intern program, and she was a former college player and pro player, and the guys just worked with her and whatever she was working with them on, their stride, their puck work, whatever, they were totally open to it. I think for the end of the day, it comes back to what you're talking about or not. So whether male, female, dog, whatever, whoever's doing the teaching, if they know what they're talking about, at some point, just like anything, like even for me, like every year, like we have a Bruins contract goalie this year. He didn't know what to make of me at first. He won the league last year. He was MVP. And here I am, this guy, working with him at first. He just didn't know what to make of me. But now we've got a great relationship because over time he realizes I know what I'm talking about. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to be heavy handed. So now he'll just say, what did you see, last game or what do you see during this drill? Am I doing this or that and stuff? Just some basic habits that we're trying to work with. But I've gone through that
Mhm.
every year. It's the same kind of thing. Even though I've been coaching for decades, if somebody doesn't know me, they're like, well, why should I listen to you?
Yes.
And then I just try to say, this is my philosophy and I'm not going to try to change you. I'm just here to be supportive of you and, whatever. And then when they see that I have their best interests at heart, then usually the barriers break down.
Sure.
So no matter who you are, I think you're going to go through that to some degree.
And it takes time to get to that place
Hmm.
because especially if you're only seeing a goalie once every week is better than nothing, but
Right.
once every 2 weeks, once every month, like it's hard to build that rapport.
Yeah, but again, it comes down to it doesn't take long for somebody to figure out that you know what you're talking about and that you care about them. So it may take a
Absolutely.
couple, if there's only seeing them twice a month, it may take till that second month or so for them to start to understand it. But again, people, whether you're a kid or whether you're an adult, they can see a phony, you know, from a mile away.
Mhm.
And I always feel like I care about you. It's not about me. This is my passion is, spreading knowledge and making you better. But at the end of the day, you're playing, not me. So you got to do what's right for you. I'm just giving you feedback. And from a knowledgeable perspective, you can use it or not. And I think the best goalie coaches tend to be that way. There are some that are very heavy handed. That's my way or the highway. But I think the best goalie coaches usually are the ones that are like, here, I'm a resource. Don't blow it. Because
Yeah,
I care about you. And usually
absolutely.
they see that and then they start to, you know, whether you're like a kid or an adult, I think once they see that, then they let their guard down a little bit and start to ask you questions and things.
Mhm. The idea of not being heavy-handed, I think, is so important, and I almost felt a little bad in a way. The past couple weeks, I've been working with more teams that I haven't really had exposure to, so they don't know me from a hole in the ground. And the first like 15, 20 minutes, the coaches are probably thinking, what is this girl doing? She's just kind of standing there watching. But similar to what you're saying, I don't want to just come in and tell somebody how to be. I want to see, how do they move? What is their rebound control like? How do they go from post to post? Are they struggling with their 5-hole? I need to see those things before I can make suggestions.
Right. Right, exactly. I just try to just keep it simple, like not get too far ahead of anything. I just try to watch the goalie do drills, even just see what their habits are. And like if
Right.
I see a habit, then we'll start with that as an entry level point, and then as we build the trust and add other things. But usually it takes me, you're even around this long enough to know you can watch somebody for 30 seconds and probably come up with a couple of things that they need to do.
Absolutely.
And you pick
Absolutely.
your battles as to what's the one that you want to spend the time on and what's going to get
Hmm.
their attention. And usually if it's something like usually the little kids, they want to learn how to catch the puck better. And so if that's what they want to do, then that's what I'll do with them. And within usually a few minutes, I could have them catching pretty well. And then they get all excited because you helped them do something. And now you got your street cred because you showed them how to do something that they couldn't do well before.
Yeah.
Then you go from there.
You're working with the goalie for the first time. They are brand new to the position. Where are you starting? Like, what's your go?
Your stance, where the hands are, things like that, and then how you move around the crease a little bit, just some, and try and put it in the context of what they're seeing in front of them. So I want to tie everything in to visualizing how it goes into a situation, even if they're brand
Hmm.
new. As an example, I was working Puck Stoppers goalie camp a few summers back with Rob Day, and the group was all college and junior goalies, and they're doing a sliding warm up, and they're all sliding, and I'm like, I've called them over. It's like, what's going through your mind while you're sliding? And they're like, nothing. I said, that's not right, not the right answer, because you're just sliding with no purpose. So you need to know how that footwork relates to a situation. So then I had shooters with a puck mirror them, so they were at least sliding to a puck, not just blindly putting the organ playing and they're just going pretty down the ice. Bringing that to a little kid is like, when in this first drill, they're coming at you and shooting at the top of the circle. Well, here's how you can be in the right spot. Here's the footwork you need. Here's the stance you need. And here's how you turn your head and hands into the save. That's going to make you successful. And then if they can do those basics right there, then obviously you can build off that from
Yeah,
there. But I always
for
try to
sure.
relate it to why are you doing it? Like how, because otherwise, like even little kids, like they don't know where to stand because they can't see themselves. So I use my cell phone all the time just to take, okay, here's the
Yeah.
puck. How do you think you should line up on it? I'll take the picture. Then I'll correct them, take a second picture and say, look at the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, here's where you were, facing the middle angle when the puck was on the face-off dot. Now you're over in the short side. Now there's virtually nothing but wear, and they'll say 5-hole. Like, yeah, that's all you're giving. So unless you drop early, you can wait till they commit to the low shot, then you just drop and take it away.
Hmm.
But if you can't visualize it,
Right.
then it's just words coming out of my mouth. So I've
Right.
learned that
Yeah.
picture, as the old saying goes, a picture's worth 1,000 words,
Yeah.
and so that's my go-to almost every youth practice is if they're doing something where I think they need to see what they look like, I'll just pose them in that skill set or whatever and take a picture. And even like catch a glove save or a blocker save, you know, pose them where their head, hands, and everything are turning in the same direction just so they can see what it looks like, so they can feel it to some degree. If they
Right.
can visualize it in their head, then it creates that mental movie that I think it's easier to, start to do it when you can picture it.
Something that I have been struggling with my younger goalies is they just don't have the grip strength, like the
Mhm.
hand strength to close their glove. When they finally get it closed, then they're like going to cover the puck with like their elbow. And so sometimes it's just them fighting the equipment too.
Yeah, right. I mean, with the glove part, I always call like a forward diagonal from your nose to your thumb because that allows you to watch the puck go into your glove and you're meeting it earlier in the trajectory. But if you have a firm wrist, that means the pocket's facing out. So even if you can't close the glove, probably the technology of the glove, if your pocket's facing it and it hits your pocket, it's
Pin
going to
it at
stick.
least.
It's going to stick. And that's to me because when their hand is relaxed, then they got to waste a split second opening it up. That's why it's off the heel of the glove a lot. But if you can get used to having it ahead of the body, not behind the body, where I call it playing the violin, because if you have your hand even with your body, the puck goes over your elbow like as if you were playing the
Yep.
violin.
Mhm.
So just trying to get them to see those things, because then if the glove isn't the right size or if it's a hand-me-down glove in the organization is like a pancake. So the idea that if you can make contact, at the very least, you're gonna block it. You may not claim catch, but you'll still make the save, and they can pounce on it or knock it away or whatever.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
those are things you just kind of adjust with the kid based on,
Absolutely.
their
Yeah.
length and everything else. But
Yeah.
some of the little kids are already have the, like, pretty good skill sets. That's what's pretty amazing, compared to the old days. I mean,
Yeah.
the little kids have already been into a goalie coach or something, or have the really good equipment, and it's just, trying to get them to understand the game a little bit so they have a little bit more hockey sense to go with their
Do you
natural.
ever put pads on anymore?
Not really. Like, I've been tempted to at times, and I know, like, the Mariners every year have a 3-on-3 tournament in the team, and I've been tempted to throw the pads on, but I haven't had them on in, like, 15 years, and I still can picture myself in with everything, but it's tempting because I like the perspective when I have had the pads on in the past. It keeps you kind of in that visualization piece.
Absolutely. I really think that you should put those articles together. I think that there's a market for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is more mental stuff than it is actual technique related. But yeah, I'll motivate at some point.
Yeah.
At least I have them all together. I just have them all like kind of organized, so
Yeah.
that's a good thing. And I've done small packets for goalies and stuff where I've used them and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of articles over the years that I wrote for different publications and stuff.
The most important thing that I hope that people can kind of take from this is you said how many years? 40 something?
37, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot of years. And since you were the goalie, so much has changed since then, but still you're like one of the best in the game. So the ability to be able to take that knowledge and still be sharing it, it doesn't matter how long ago we were goalies, like we
Yeah,
still know what we're talking about. It's
yeah.
still
Well,
the same the
Well, the
same
funny thing, I did, when I was a college coach, we always had a convention every year in Naples, Florida, and the Montreal Canadiens sports site guy, he gave one really good piece of advice. He goes, "You all have great stories. Just the kids don't need to know. Just update with current names. Like if it was Bobby Orr, now just tell the same story, but call it Sidney Crosby or
Yeah,
Alexander Ovechkin." And I've done that. I've done the same stories, but I'll just use the current goalie, and it's like, just to update the story because they don't need to know that, it's an old story
right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the game has changed a lot, but yet the same things are important as time, space, how you read plays. There are new techniques, but there are some old techniques that still work well too. It's just, again, having a good tool bag and having the confidence to pull out the right tool at the right time, because I think a lot of goalies get too rigid in their thought process, like they've done a lot of, maybe the goalie coaches not taught them how to do a butterfly slide. They do a butterfly slide and everything. It's not appropriate.
Mhm. Yeah.
The age isn't appropriate for everything. So it's understanding, what you should do when. And I think that's
Absolutely.
that's important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that you're right in that things have gotten a lot better with goalie development overall. I found 15 different goalie coaches online last
Mhm.
night.
Yeah.
They all have great stuff. It's like we need a hub so that like
Yeah.
parents and coaches and players can go to one place and see all of these things
Yeah.
together
Well,
instead of
w-
it all
well,
exists in silos.
yeah, well, I know, when I was with Casco Bay, they actually compiled on their Casco Bay youth hockey site. Here's a bunch of resources you can click on, if you want to get further information, whatever. So they
Mhm.
have a goalie director that's put a lot of good time and effort into
That's
that
awesome.
for parents so that they can have those options. I mean, the good thing is, a quick Google search will pull up a lot, but
Yeah.
then it's just knowing that, you can borrow a little bit from this person, a little bit from that person. It's not like every person is, giving you the 10 commandments up on the mountain. Some things that you don't agree with, which is fine. Like, people don't have to agree with everything I say. But if it creates your imagination a little bit, it creates curiosity. That's really what you're trying to do. And then you become your own person in that, borrowing a little bit from this person, a little bit from that person, you know. And then, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You want to be able to have the
Absolutely.
sense that you don't have to be all of like this. Everything has to be in the same neat package. I mean, it's just really you learn something good or bad from anybody that you work with. There's some people you may don't never want to do that again because it was forced on you, but that's okay because you know not to do that.
Right.
Not to play that way.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
because ultimately you have to play the way you like to play, but hopefully with a good head on your shoulders and
Yeah.
good choices.
For sure. For sure. Are you finding that a lot of teams that you're aware of have like a sports psychologist or have somebody for athletes to talk to, or is it
But
still kind of
I think it. I mean, Probably not so much at the youth levels, but I think for the high school, prep school, colleges, and pros, there's at least someone that they can reach out to. Usually, mental health has become a lot more important. So, like, we have a sports psych person that comes into our practice right during training camp and just gives out her card out and saying, "I'm here for you." So, the team pays for it. If you need me, I'm here for you and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
we do make it available.
Yeah, I mean, not to get into my story too much, like my redshirt year was a medical redshirt year for mental health.
Yeah,
And some people know that, not everybody knows that, but I think more and more there are mental health related medical redshirt
sure.
years. And yeah, it just I was lucky to be able to use that as an option so that
Mhm.
I could see out the rest of my career, you know? And so mental health is definitely rightfully so more talked about these
Yeah.
days, but
Well,
I
even
think
yeah.
yeah.
Even a couple of NHL goalies this year and last year have taken breaks, mental health, leave of
Mhm.
absences because, it's a lot of stress on them and stuff, and they have other family things going on or whatever. But now it's not looked at as negatively. It's just totally different culture. I love working with the Mariners. This truly is like a family between the front office or owner, the players. But I've been around long enough to see the old days where a coach could be screaming at you, could be slapping you in the face, all these things
Yeah.
that would be in jail over. But that stuff
Mhm.
was normal back, 30 years ago or something. But now, like, you don't really raise your voice to the team very much. It's more like, "This is where we need to go. This is why." There's more communication with the players and understanding that if they have a family thing, that's family is first. Like, if you have to leave because there's something with your family, then you just go, and it's definitely changed. I mean, I can see it, it's way healthier than it was, when I started my career. So
Good.
that's a good thing.
Is there anything else that you think that I haven't touched on that deserves to be spoken about?
The most important thing is that the philosophy of just trying to be a resource for the goalies and not try to be heavy-handed, but teaching them how to read the play, how to make good decisions on their own, because ultimately, again, they're playing, not me, not you. But if they have the knowledge and the confidence to do the right things at the right time based on what they see, then you've done your job, I've done my job, because they feel like they have the knowledge base to play the best they can be, and that's sort of ultimately the goal is to be the best goalie that you are, not trying to compare yourself to an Olympic goalie, a pro goalie, or anything like that. You're just trying to be the best version of you, and that's what you have to try to be accountable to, and not unrealistic expectations. Like, I'm never going to be, Sergei Bobrovsky. That's not going to happen. Not at my age, never before anyway. But for somebody that started late like I did to at least play college hockey, that was an accomplishment. I'm proud of that. But it
Yeah,
also taught me how to coach the position because I started so late. So there's different, everybody's different. Everybody's unique with their things. And I think that's the important thing. Said everybody's, don't have to be somebody else.
couldn't have said it better.